Discover the incredible love story, a CEO single dad's unexpected encounter with a remarkable girl. Jake Anderson stared at his computer screen, the cursor blinking in rhythm with the chaotic rhythm of his life. As CEO of a successful tech company, he was no stranger to pressure, yet today's stakes felt impossibly high. 6 months after losing his wife, every decision was layered with an unfamiliar sense of ambiguity. He hovered over the keyboard, an important presentation lingering in his thoughts even as Mia, his vibrant 8-year-old daughter, begged for his attention from the living room. Could he balance these two worlds? One was a ceaseless spiral of meetings and deadlines, while the other was the pure yet weighty bond of fatherhood. Mia's laughter, once a source of joy, had morphed into a piercing reminder of his failure to be present. He'd promise her more daddy-daughter time, but the relentless demands of his role often undermined those intentions. A flickering hope that he'd somehow connect with her danced in the back of his mind, but the stifling fear twisted within that he was becoming a ghost in their home. Before the workday began, he slipped out to the local youth center, a place where laughter mingled freely with creativity, an initiative his late wife had cherished. It was his attempt to honor her memory while also allowing Mia the chance to engage with other kids. As he arrived, he was immediately struck by the colorful chaos. Kids dashed around, canvases smeared with colors that wouldn't dare comply with adult logic. "Mr. Anderson." A voice chimed, bright and inviting. Sarah, the art teacher, materialized before him, her wild curls bouncing as if filled with static electricity. Her approach was entirely unorthodox. She had a way of ushering the children into expressions that felt raw and uninhibited. Unlike the sterile environment of boardrooms, here was a space where spontaneity thrived, but Jake was a man accustomed to control. He watched, uncertain, as she handed brushes to children, urging them to paint their dreams, frustrations, hopes. What power did a paintbrush hold against car sales and quarterly profits? Jake felt his heart tighten. Did he even remember how to let loose? Before he could process the whirlwind of emotions, his phone buzzed relentlessly, a reminder of the urgent meeting looming over him that day. It was a precarious balance. Secure his position at work, or extend a hand to the creativity that embodied everything he'd lost. The weight of it made it hard to breathe. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the hours dragged on, Jake sorted through a box of his late wife's belongings. Each item was soaked in nostalgia, especially her half-finished canvas marked with vibrant intentions for a community art initiative she had envisioned for the youth center. Would completing that project not only honor her but also heal him? The flickers of creativity from earlier now felt like a siren call, but with every heartbeat came the dread of failing in the corporate game he'd played for so long. Looking out at the world of color and laughter contrasted sharply against the impending meeting. Would he sacrifice the legacy he built to explore this unfamiliar territory of love and community? The clock ticked closer to decision time, and Jake felt the walls around him close in, his heart racing wildly as he grappled with the uncertainty of his next move. Standing on this precipice, the choice loomed larger than ever: bridge the gap between two vital aspects of his life or risk losing everything he held dear. Jake's breath quickened as he faced a crossroads. He could dive deep into the execution of his business plan and seal his fate as a CEO consumed by his work, or dare to step into a world of colors and creativity, risking the established persona he'd forged over the years. The urgency of the moment tightened in his chest, each option calling out with equal weight. That he envisioned Mia, her eyes sparkling with joy, running into his arms, her laughter ringing out like a melody in a sterile boardroom. A sense of warmth began to thaw the icy grip anxiety had on him. Wouldn't fulfilling his late wife's dream of nurturing creativity in their daughter also show Mia he was still here, still fighting for both of them? The vibrant artwork surrounding him, bubbling with life, whispered promises of connection he longed for. He swallowed hard, the intensity of the moment pulling him away from the corporate grind that had defined him. This wasn't just a fleeting interest, it was a lifeline. Grabbing that paintbrush felt like it might allow him to reclaim a piece of himself he'd buried beneath spreadsheets and stock reports. Deciding on a course of action ignited a flicker of hope inside. He straightened his posture, envisioning a path forward. Perhaps he could finalize that meeting, quell the doubts of investors, and then turn around to invest his energy into his daughter's world. The idea became a bulwark against the lethargy that usually accompanied balancing his roles. That evening, Jake took a different route home. Instead of the mundane traffic that led to his office, he drove through winding roads, namesakes of memories from happier times shared with Mia. It felt liberating, like each turn offered freedom from a plot dictated by others. He wanted to break free and explore how life could marry creativity with responsibility, stepping away from the rigid confines of his office life. Arriving home, he found Mia sprawled on the living room floor, art supplies scattered around like wildflowers on a hillside. Her latest creation was a chaotic burst of colors, a world she had conjured amidst the playful mess. For the first time in a long while, an unexpected smile crept onto his face. "Hey, kiddo," he said, joining her on the floor with a gentle determination, ready to immerse himself in her universe. "Mind if I join you? To paint?" she asked, eyes widening. The thrill in her voice further fueled his resolve, and he nodded, reaching for a brush. As they painted together, colors melded into a seamless tapestry of shared joy and mutual discovery. Jake felt a shift within him, the pressure of unresolved grief softened by the strokes of paint that swirled together. In that moment, the vibrant chaos before him replaced the rigid expectations of his CEO role. It was invigorating, transformative, but somewhere deep down, a flicker of doubt remained. Would this be enough? Could he bridge the journey from corporate titan to a present father? The question echoed in the backdrop as the canvas before them started to take shape. As they added layers to their artwork, he could almost hear the specter of his old life whispering concerns of failing both Mia and his professional obligations. The lingering uncertainty was foggy, but within it was clarity. This was no longer just about him, it was about setting a foundation for both him and Mia to grow, express, and potentially thrive. But just as they added a final stroke to their masterpiece, the doorbell rang, pulling Jake sharply back to reality. The world beyond their colorful sanctuary lurked with challenges that couldn't be ignored. A sense of urgency washed over him once more, threatening to fracture the moment they had created. Who awaited on the other side? Would this be another weight dragging him down, or a sign bringing clarity to the path ahead? He felt that familiar knot of tension arise in his stomach as he stood up to answer, knowing that whatever awaited him could reshape not only the evening, but the entire narrative of his life. Jake steadied his breathing as he approached the door, every step echoing with a mixture of trepidation and resolve. He grasped the doorknob, hesitating for a moment to gather his thoughts. The image of his daughter, lost in her creative world, fueled his courage. He didn't want anything to disrupt this fragile connection they'd begun to build. With a turn of the knob, he opened the door to find Barry, his most persistent investor. The man's sharp suit contrasted starkly with the vibrant art sprawled across his living room, a stark reminder of the corporate world that awaited him. Barry's expression was intense, his demeanor draped in an aura of urgency that tightened Jake's stomach. "Jake, we need to talk," Barry said, stepping inside without invitation. The words rippled through Jake like an uninvited gust of wind. "What's wrong?" Jake could sense the weight attached to Barry's urgent tone, a stark reminder that his venture was far from secure. "It's about the funding. The board is worried about our market strategy. They want answers, and they want them now." Barry's eyes remained locked onto Jake, assessing him and the space around him. "What's your plan?" Jake felt the walls of his newfound sanctuary shrink around him, constricting as the anxiety from his corporate life crept back in. Yet, as he glanced back at Mia, laughing as she splattered paint, a rush of determination propelled him forward. "I'm working on something," he said, voice steadier than he felt. "A final proposal that will align our vision with what the market needs. We can appeal to a new demographic by focusing on community initiatives. Barry raised an eyebrow. And that entails creativity. Something that resonates beyond profits. I'm looking into partnerships with local artists to promote our brand through art, Jake explained. Each word felt like a bridge he was building toward his dual worlds of business and fatherhood. Could his desire to foster creativity in Mia intersect with his corporate duties? Barry scoffed, crossing his arms. Art? You think that's going to convince the board? This isn't a charity, Jake. We're in this to make money. Jake felt a familiar anger rise within him. And what if I told you that nurturing creativity could lead to increased innovation, deeper customer loyalty, and ultimately higher profits? Don't you see that this is not just about money? Mia. You want to intertwine your personal life with corporate strategy? Barry interrupted, skepticism dripping from his words. Jake took a deep breath, internal conflict swirling within him. I'm not separating them anymore. If I'm going to change this company, I need to be true to myself, and to her. There's a healing quality in art and community that can lead to success. But doubt clawed at the back of his mind, the specter of failure rising again. Would embracing this strategy jeopardize the only sense of stability he had? He felt that tension bridge back into his throat as Barry watched him with an assessing eye. Look, Jake, you can't mix your passions with the bottom line. What you need is a solid business model. Barry's voice was calm, almost condescending, as if he held the keys to Jake's success in his hands. Suddenly, the artist within him felt stifled, and he questioned whether he was prepared to stand against the tide of corporate expectations. As discomfort gripped his chest, Mia's laughter echoed through the hall, the sounds piercing through the haze of uncertainty. The emotional pull of her happiness reminded Jake of what was truly at stake. Maybe you're right, he conceded slowly, the weight of compromise pressing on his shoulders. But we're going to find a way to make both work. The tension in the air was palpable as Jake glared at Barry, determined to protect the vision he held for both his daughter and his career. Yet as the discussion swelled, a disquieting thought took root. What would it truly cost him to break from the confines of the corporate world he had known so well? Barry started speaking again, but the words fell away into the background noise of his consciousness. That final brushstroke with Mia haunted him. Could he color outside the lines of business, and if so, how much was he willing to risk? As Barry laid out the expectations of the board, Jake's mind raced. A decision was looming. The path he ultimately chose would chart the course of his career and reshape his relationship with Mia. The door was still ajar, the world outside looming with potential consequences. Jake's heart raced, drawn into the ever-growing conflict between security and a life defined by authentic passion. How would he balance this newfound joy with the relentless pressures of corporate life? He felt the ground beneath him shake, the threshold of his past and future colliding once more. Would the door he was now holding open lead to opportunity, or would it fracture the beautiful progress he had just begun to create? The weight of uncertainty settled over Jake like a dense fog as Barry's voice unraveled before him, a backdrop to the cacophony of his racing thoughts. Each suggestion from Barry felt like a tether to expectations he was desperate to escape. The remnants of his corporate life screamed for allegiance, urging him to comply with the safe path outlined by numbers and projections. Yet, as he replayed the image of Mia painting joyfully in the next room, a new path beckoned, a path colored by passion. Jake, Barry's voice was insistent, breaking through his mental turmoil. You risk everything, including your credibility, if you pursue this artistic angle. The belief that lingered within Jake spurred a counter-response. What if this is more than a risk? What if it's the reset we need? His voice trembled with the weight of conviction. Each word drew from the deep well of his hope, a yearning to not just succeed professionally, but to redefine what success meant for him and Mia. Barry's expression hardened, a mask of disbelief creeping across his features. You're talking about a fantasy. Look around you, Jake. This is real life, not a child's art project. Disappointment flared in Jake, though he masked it with calm resolve. How could Barry not see the potential? But the more Jake tried to defend his vision, the deeper the doubts clawed at him. Maybe he was being naive, a dreamer caught up in the vibrant colors of creative expression while the foundation crumbled beneath him. Yet, the thought of Mia's laughter wafting through the air, coupled with the vibrant splashes of paint around them, steeled his resolve. Then I'll present it to the board. This is my vision, whether you believe it or not. I need to explore it, he stated, summoning the last vestige of his determination. Barry rolled his eyes, but anger flared within Jake, an unfamiliar but familiar sense of defiance igniting his spirit. Fine. But don't say I didn't warn you when their response is less than enthusiastic. As Barry turned to leave, Jake felt the enormity of what he had just committed to sunlight the shadows where his fears dwelled. This was not just a professional gamble, it was a personal battle. He was at a pivotal crossroads, where devotion to his daughter clashed against the rigidity of his business life. For too long, he had kept them separate, believing they couldn't coexist without conflict. With Barry now gone, the silence of the house enveloped him like a blanket, contrasting sharply with the storm brewing inside. The walls of his sanctuary felt taller, yet they echoed a newfound sense of possibility. Jake roamed the living room, absorbing Mia's creations, chaotic but full of life, and a spark ignited. He wouldn't just present a proposal, he needed to embody his vision. Infusing each strategic point with a personal anecdote, a story rooted in love and connection, could resonate on a level the board might not anticipate. The clattering sound of paintbrushes startled him, a reminder of his daughter's world once more. As Mia's chubby fingers twirled joyfully through color and texture, Jake contemplated how he could capture that spirit in his presentation. The lines between personal and professional were fading, and perhaps they should be blurred. He grabbed a sketch pad from the coffee table, letting the ink flow with his thoughts, each stroke a reflection of his resolve. The concept of community-centered art sponsorships began to take shape, coupled with a budget analysis. There was a rhythm to the work, a harmony that reminded him of Mia's carefree splashes of color. As insight spilled forth, Jake felt an empowering thrill surge through him. This was more than a business strategy, it was an opportunity to bring his worlds together. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, pulling him back to reality. Still buzzing with inspiration, he opened the door to find an old friend and colleague, Lena, standing with a smirk on her face, a beacon from his past he hadn't expected to see. Thought I might find you here, drowning in corporate despair, she teased lightly. Her familiar presence sparked old memories, but also the realization that he was indeed standing at the edge of a cliff, ready for a leap. But before he could respond, a new anxiety crept in. Could Lena, with her fierce independence and success in a different sector, provide insight that could guide him on this precarious journey? Are you ready for a real conversation? She asked, her eyes glinting with curiosity, but also a challenge. Jake took a deep breath, the implications of her arrival sinking in. The confluence of past and future nudged at his mind. Could Lena provide the critical perspective he needed? Actually, I think now is the perfect time, he replied, inviting her in, feeling the weight of potential choices pressing closer with every heartbeat. With a new sense of hope igniting within him, Jake was bracing for revelations that might just steer him toward the uncharted waters of passion, career, and fatherhood intertwined. What unexpected truths would emerge from this encounter? As Lena stepped into the room, Jake felt a rush of familiarity mixed with apprehension. She had always possessed a knack for cutting through pretense and revealing deeper truths, and right now, he needed that. How are things really going, Jake? Lena asked, her question probing, not casual. The way she looked at him brought memories of late-night strategy sessions and candid chats in boardrooms filled with tension. I'm at a crossroads, I guess, he admitted, his voice steady despite the inner turmoil churning. I'm trying to pivot into something different, something fulfilling. Her eyebrow arched, curiosity sparking in her expression. Different how? What's pushing you? He hesitated, the words jumbled in his throat. I want something that resonates not just for me, but for Mia too. The mention of his daughter brought a warmth to his tone. I've been stuck in this corporate mold, but I think I can merge my passion for her creativity with strategic thinking. Bold move, Lena observed, leaning against the wall, arms crossed. And risky. You know the board won't take kindly to a shift without numbers to back it up. The response ignited the doubt lurking in Jake's mind. Barry told me it was a fantasy. But what if it's more than that? He paused, gathering courage. I think there's power in storytelling. I can craft our next project from a more personal angle. Lena regarded him silently for a moment, the weight of his ambition hanging in the air. What story are you aiming to tell? How do you bridge that with hard business sense? He explained his vision, a campaign that intertwined artistic expression with corporate sponsorship, highlighting local talent while boosting community morale. What if we give voice and space to artists? I've seen how Mia's creations resonate. Art changes perspectives, it sparks conversations. The words spilled from him, tinged with excitement and trepidation. Interesting, Lena replied, a contemplative smile forming. But how will you convince the board that this is not just fluff? You need a strong business case. That challenge embedded itself deep in his thoughts. What if I infuse metrics with emotional stories? It can't just be numbers. It has to pull them in. Show them what they'll miss if they stay on this stale path. Now we're talking, she encouraged, her enthusiasm palpable. Lead with your passion, but don't ignore the numbers, package it all together. You'll need a powerful pitch. Jake nodded, feeling invigorated. The ideas began to crystallize, each detail interlocking like pieces of a puzzle. This was not merely a presentation, it was his chance to carve out a new identity. He was on the verge of a metamorphosis, claiming his narrative rather than allowing it to be dictated by others. I've got some tools left from the old days market analysis software, trend reports. Lena suggested, leaning forward as if sharing a secret. We can draft a focused proposal, layering insights with emotional appeal. But it has to be authentic, or the board will see straight through it. The layers of strategy danced in Jake's mind like brush strokes across a canvas. By weaving authenticity into informed projections, he could create a compelling narrative that represented both the company's future and his personal evolution. As they delved deeper, brainstorming and structuring ideas, Jake felt a profound realization settle in. This task was not only about reshaping his career but about redefining his values. His aspirations for success were intertwined with his role as a father. Lena's voice broke through his thoughts. Jake, you still seem hesitant. What are you really afraid of? Failure, I guess. The cost of stepping away from a steady paycheck, the risk to my reputation. He paused, staring at the vibrant art. But the fear of not trying, of not showing Mia that life can be vibrant and fulfilling, that scares me more. She nodded slowly, her gaze unwavering. You're on the right track, the fear is part of it, but don't let it paralyze you. Use it as fuel to drive your actions. Motivated, Jake jotted down notes. Discussing ideas and metrics, losing track of time in the creative process. Together, they crafted a preliminary pitch, igniting a fire within him that hadn't burned so fiercely in years. As night fell, and the sketches and notes spread across the table, an unanticipated sense of clarity washed over him. This wasn't merely a professional endeavor, it was a chance to live authentically. Thank you, Lena. I can't express how much this means, Jake said, vulnerability creeping into his voice. Don't thank me yet. Let us see how it pans out with the board. But you've got something here. Her affirmation lingered in the air like the fresh scent of paint. Just then, a notification pinged on his phone, an email reminder for the board meeting deadline. The reality of his upcoming presentation loomed large, filled with both dread and exhilaration. Are you ready for this? Lena asked, the challenge evident. Ready or not, I've got to embrace everything that's coming, he replied, determination igniting anew, yet just as he felt a wave of resolution, doubt surged. What if the board rejected everything he was building? The fear nestled in the pit of his stomach, whispering ominous possibilities. As he switched off the light and prepared to sleep, Jake lay wide awake, the weight of the upcoming decision pressing down on him. The stakes felt monumental. Could he thread the delicate balance of creativity and corporate demand? With thoughts swirling, Jake took a deep breath, gathering strength from the spark of creativity ignited earlier. The journey to uncover the truth of his own desires paired with professional aspirations had commenced, but would he find the resolve to face the looming confrontation? Tomorrow promised no easy answers, but one thing was certain: it would test everything he thought he knew about himself. The morning sun pierced through the window, casting a warm glow across Jake's living room. Yet, that warmth did little to soothe his racing mind. The board meeting was only hours away, and each tick of the clock echoed the gravity of his intention. How could a few minutes of presentation redefine his career and legacy? He pulled out his laptop, heart pounding in rhythm with a steady percussion of caffeine-driven determination. The deck lay before him like an unfinished painting, awaiting the strokes of insight and conviction. He needed to draft not just a proposal, but an invitation, a bridge between the rigid world of corporate expectations and the fluid realm of creativity where Mia thrived. Jake focused on the project's core message. What were the key points he believed in? What resonated deeply within him? Sketching bullet points across the screen, he soon found himself drafting narratives, the journey of an artist, reflections penned from Mia's perspective, the emotional weight behind each brushstroke. As he typed, he felt her presence beside him, whispering inspiration into his ear. Once he had the narrative firmly in place, Jake turned his attention back to numbers, the cold steel of business. He flipped through trend reports and forecasts, blending data with storylines. This was the heart of what he wanted to convey: emotional storytelling infused with tangible outcomes. Suddenly, each figure on his screen transformed from being merely a number into a potential narrative maximizing impact. What did those numbers mean for the community he wished to engage? Each word he typed became a declaration of his intent to bring about change. The realization struck him that success didn't solely rely upon traditional metrics, it required understanding deeper human emotions and connections. The challenge was wrapping data snugly within the softness of sentiment, creating a narrative that both excited and convinced. He leaned back, fatigue washing over him, yet satisfaction simmering beneath. There was an electrifying clarity in his thoughts, each element aligning with purpose. But then, the doubt crept in again. What if they saw through his veil of passion? What if they deemed his approach trivial? The fear loomed larger, threatening to choke the creative flame he nurtured. Courage doesn't mean you don't feel fear, Lena's voice echoed in his mind. It means you act despite it. Pausing, Jake took a moment to breathe, reminding himself of the stakes. This wasn't simply about him, it was about teaching Mia how to live authentically, how to pursue dreams boldly. The reflection of who he wanted to be an example to her galvanized him further. 90 minutes stood between him and a potential life change, and every minute counted. Around noon, Jake donned his tailored blazer, feeling the weight of the fabric against his shoulders. He stood in front of the mirror, engaging in a silent conversation. You can't let them stay fixed in their ways. You have a story to alter their perspective. The drive to the corporate offices was rife with tension. It felt as if he was being pulled between two worlds: the safe confines of his corporate career and the uncharted territory of his aspirations. He envisioned every possible outcome: applause, skepticism, confusion. With each scenario, he tempered his responses, but those fears seemed just as limiting as they were clarifying. As he parked, Jake's heart raced. The boardroom loomed ahead, an arena where countless ambitions had been forged and broken. He clenched his fists, feeling the tension convert to energy that propelled him forward. This was at the convergence of risk and opportunity. The door swung open, and a mix of familiar and apprehensive faces awaited him. Every seat was filled, and a palpable silence fell over the room as he approached the front. They didn't know what he was about to unleash. He felt buoyed by the knowledge that he had a vision they had not anticipated, but in that moment, a flicker of doubt ignited again. What if what he had poured his soul into wasn't enough? The air thickened around him as he stood behind the podium, reminding himself of Lena's encouragement. The stakes were high, but the desire to share something meaningful outweighed the fear of rejection. With the click of a button, his proposal illuminated the screen, casting shadows of businesses and artists intertwined. This was more than a pitch, it was a call to action for everyone present. Inhaling deeply, Jake began speaking. And as he did, he realized that in unveiling his truth, he wasn't just trying to persuade the board, he was finding his own voice, but as his words poured forth and he absorbed their reactions, he found himself wondering how they would respond. Would they embrace this different approach, or would they cling to their stale paradigms? The moment of truth had arrived, an impeding confrontation simmered just beneath the surface. Jake's voice echoed in the boardroom, each syllable infused with an urgency he hoped would resonate with his audience. As he articulated his vision, the faces around him shifted from skepticism to curiosity. He had prepared for this, crafted every word with intention, but nothing could fully prepare him for the energy in the room. That he spoke of Mia, the artist, showcasing her work as raw truth. The emotional backdrop he painted intertwined their lives, her struggles mirrored the challenges faced by businesses bound by outdated conventions. In voicing her journey, he discovered the poetry of his own, one that sought not just profit, but purpose. As he transitioned to metrics, he could feel the tension crackle in the air. Graphs flooded the screen, illustrating potential growth alongside emotional engagement. This is not just about numbers, Jake asserted, his voice unwavering. It's about tapping into the essence of what makes us human, what makes us want to connect. If we incorporate creativity into our methods, the returns won't just be financial, will cultivate lasting relationships. The board remained silent, their expressions unreadable. He wished he could peer into their minds, gauge their thoughts. Instinct whispered to him that vulnerability was key. Every artist needs a canvas, he said, his tone shifting subtly. And every business needs a story. Imagine if we can transform our work culture into something that inspires rather than constrains. As he concluded, he caught a glimpse of a few nods, a flicker of acknowledgement that intrigued him. It wasn't enough to silence the ever-present nagging voice of doubt. What if he had misjudged the room? Does anyone have questions? He asked, striving to maintain the connection he had begun to build. Silence hung heavily, tickling at the edges of his confidence. Then, one board member, a veteran in the company, broke the stillness. Jake, it's ambitious. But what makes you think we can incorporate such a radical approach? The inquiry was a challenge. Jake shifted his stance, considering the best way to respond. Because the world is changing. People crave authenticity more than just transactional relationships. They want brands that truly resonate with their values. The man leaned back, a flicker of interest glazing his features. Jake pressed forward, driven by the dialogue forged in that moment. Every brand out there markets themselves for profit. But what if we chose a different path? We could be disruptors, blending the artistry that inspires with the strategies that succeed. What if we could partner with local artists to elevate community and our brand? It's uncharted territory, but the potential is revolutionary. Another board member interjected, clearly skeptical. We've always operated within the bounds of calculated risks. How do you measure success in your vision? What's at stake? Jake took a breath, fishing for his words, grappling with how deeply he believed in this. The risk is remaining stagnant. The reward is creating something that lives beyond our spreadsheets. We must evolve, or we become irrelevant. As murmurs rippled through the room, he felt a spark of hope. Perhaps this was not just a pitch, but the beginning of a movement that could redefine their culture. A few questions emerged, sparking an unexpected and dynamic repartee. Each objection met with logic wrapped in emotion, and with that, each exchange felt less like a battle and more like a dance. Finally, as the meeting drew close, Jake knew he had ignited something within them. Yet, doubt lingered, casting shadows over his triumph. Had he truly convinced them, or was it merely lip service to appease? As they concluded, one of the board members made a surprising announcement. We'll deliberate over this for a while. Let us reconvene next week. Walking out, Jake felt the pulse of trepidation mixed with elation. The possibility of any outcome loomed large. The countdown to their decision would now become a psychological trial of its own. He found himself grappling with the enormity of his journey and what he had stumbled upon within himself. Had he not just fought for a program, but begun to discover the heart of a leader he had not fully recognized. The next week could bring validation, and perhaps it would give him a chance to redefine his own professional identity. Yet, Jake was left wondering how not just the board, but he himself would respond when faced with the realization of that vision, and so, with uncertainty still swirling, the question nagged at him: who would he become if his proposal was embraced, and what would that mean for his relationship with Mia? Jake paced his apartment, the stark glow of the city lights filtering through the window, illuminating the chaos of his thoughts. The boardroom encounter was replaying like a loop in his mind, each moment dissected under the fluorescent lights of anxiety. It was a precarious position he now held, one that could either elevate him or crush him under the weight of expectations that he had leaned into vulnerability, but would that resonate beyond the meeting? The floor beneath his feet felt unstable, and the uncertainty was a tangible weight on his shoulders. He glanced at his phone, tempted to reach out to Mia. She had a knack for sensing the tempests within him, her artistic intuition often translating his tangled emotions into something more coherent. Yet, he hesitated. Would sharing this doubt cast shadows on their budding relationship? He wasn't sure he could bear the thought of dragging her down into his turmoil. Instead, Jake directed his energy towards preparation. He needed to refine his proposal before the next meeting. If the board needed convincing that his vision was feasible, then he would give them the metrics they craved. Research sprawled across the kitchen table, a mix of charts, articles, and interviews with thought leaders dominating his attention. As he immersed himself in the data, he felt a semblance of clarity returning. This venture was about art meeting commerce, and he vowed to show that a marriage of creativity and strategy was not just doable, but essential. Each line he wrote became a building block of confidence, one that urged him to challenge the status quo. The thought of transforming dull corporate procedures into something vibrant and engaging fueled him further. Creativity isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity, he murmured to himself, drawing strength from the mantra. Yet every few moments, doubt whispered from the corners of his mind, a nagging reminder of the risks he faced. What if they didn't see it his way? What if they dismissed him again? Reluctantly, he acknowledged the feelings that coursed through him. Inadequacy and fear mingled with determination. He had not come this far to shrink back. After several hours, Jake came up with a new presentation. He wrapped it in an emotional narrative, interwoven with sound strategies and projected outcomes. The statistics, while crucial, would serve now as a supporting actor in an emotionally charged play. He wanted to convince them that by embracing a creative vision, they could lead their industry, not follow. As he prepared to send the document to his team for feedback, his thoughts shifted back to Mia. There was something about her fearless approach to life and artistry that both fascinated and intimidated him. Would she understand the stakes involved? Would she support him? He picked up his phone, fingers hovering over her contact. The uncertainty gnawed at him. He didn't want to place that burden on her shoulders. Instead, he opted for texting a simple invitation to her, suggesting they meet up at their usual cafe. Just the thought brought a hint of brightness amidst the chaos of deadlines and decisions. As he closed his laptop, the weight of his anxiety felt slightly lighter. Articulating his thoughts had crystallized his vision, transforming fear into something actionable. Yet, as he lay in bed that night, anticipation clashed with doubt, setting the stage for an internal tug-of-war. Who would he face in the next board meeting? The visionary leader he hoped to be, or the uncertain man haunted by insecurity? The lines were drawn, and Jake would have to choose which one to embrace. As he fell into a restless sleep, a new urgency flickered. The board's verdict was just days away, and he needed to be ready to confront the greatest challenge yet, being true to himself regardless of the outcome. Jake arrived at the cafe, his mind racing even faster than the city's morning traffic. The smell of fresh coffee enveloped him as he pushed open the door, a familiar refrain that often served as a soothing backdrop to his chaotic thoughts. But today, that calm was elusive. Would Mia be able to perceive the tension radiating off him? He knew he should focus on the potential conversation, the sparks of inspiration that could arise from sharing his vision with someone who could understand art's importance in business. Yet, a lingering fear tugged at him. Vulnerability was not just about opening up to someone, it was about risking rejection in turn. As he settled into a corner booth, he scanned the room, awaiting her arrival. The minutes felt stretched, taut like a string pulled too tight, a reminder that time was also slipping away from him. What lay ahead loomed larger than any moment he'd faced before. When Mia walked through the door, she was a breath of fresh air. Her smile cut through the unease coiling around him. She slid into the seat opposite him, her bright eyes alight with energy. "You looked lost in thought. What is going on?" He hesitated. Here was someone who genuinely cared, and yet the dialogue inside him raced faster than his ability to articulate it. He took a deep breath, sensing this could either fortify him or pull him under. "I'm close to something big at work, but it feels like it could go either way. I've been reworking a proposal that blends our industry with creative strategies, but I'm battling some serious self-doubt." Mia tilted her head, her interest piqued. "What is the worst that could happen?" Her question was simple, but it caught him off guard. Wouldn't it be easier to articulate his fears? Instead, her question forced him to step back and analyze the depth of his anxiety. "I guess it's the fear of validation," he replied slowly. "What if they don't see the potential? After leaning into my vulnerability in the last meeting, I'm worried they'll dismiss it as naive. I want to show them that creativity is vital, but part of me wonders if I'm just trying to convince myself." Mia listened intently, her expression thoughtful. "But what if you surprise them? Creativity isn't seen as vital in every industry. It takes courage to propose something that challenges the routine. Maybe think of it this way, you're not just defending your ideas but advocating for a broader shift." Her perspective shifted something within him. He felt a crack open, a glimmer of hope seeping in. "You're right," he realized. "It's about more than just me or my proposal. It's about changing how we view creativity in our field." "Exactly," she said, her enthusiasm palpable. "So what if they don't embrace it all? If it fails, it's a lesson, another step in your growth. The important thing is that you are standing up for what you believe in." Jake sank back into the cushion of the booth, a sense of relief washing over him. This moment was more than a supportive gesture, it was a revelation. Her unwavering belief in the importance of taking risks echoed the thoughts he had tucked away, like pieces of art yearning to be displayed. As their conversation continued, Jake's doubts began to diminish. Ideas ignited, revealing paths he hadn't considered before. Every enthusiastic what if Mia posed unspooled layers of possibility. Finally, as they shared a laugh over an outrageous hypothetical, a thought nudged at him: what if his journey could be just as significant as the result? Was he strong enough to shift the narrative of his own career, learning to embrace not just success but also failure as a stepping stone? Jake left the cafe buoyant, new resolve pushing through the remnants of doubt. He was no longer merely a man wrestling with his insecurities. He was transmuting fear into determination, ready to gamble on creativity. But as he headed back to his apartment, a thought lingered: was he truly prepared for the stakes of the next meeting? Would his newfound perspective hold up against the hardened minds on the board? That lingering uncertainty would accompany him. The threshold of change loomed, and the time had come to face reality on his terms, whatever that might entail. Jake stood at the threshold of his office, exhaustion evident etched across his features. He had presented his proposal to the board the day prior, a move he never thought he'd have the courage to make. Initially, the atmosphere had crackled with skepticism, the very tension he had anticipated. And yet, through strategic storytelling and the passion he derived from Mia's creativity, he had woven an intricate narrative that pulled the board members into his vision. Now, the moment of truth had come. The lingering conversations from yesterday echoed in his mind, fueling a flame of determination he hadn't expected. Just as he prepared to enter the boardroom, he received a message on his phone, an alert indicating that the board had reached a decision. The symbol of an unopened email felt like the weight of a 5-ton anchor. With a steady breath, he opened the door, the polished table lined with familiar faces that had previously held doubt but now seemed to spark with intrigue. There was a clarity on their expressions, a uniqueness that felt different. Thank you for joining the meeting today, the chairperson began, his voice even. We have deliberated your proposal, Jake. Jake's heart raced, anxiety coursing through his veins like an electric current. With a nod, the chairperson continued. While we were initially skeptical, your vision sparked a discussion on our strategic direction. Jake felt his heartbeat quicken. Could this be the shift he had sought? It was more than simply chasing numbers, it was about redefining their identity. To that end, we want to allocate resources to this community-driven strategy and initiate a pilot program. Jake felt the room's energy shift, his colleagues exchanged glances of surprise and excitement. Those details ignited a burst of optimism within him. He hadn't simply made an appeal, he had cultivated a new way of thinking. He had conquered the trepidation that had once ruled him. Courage had persuaded not only the board but also transformed his self-perception. Where once he had felt suffocated by conformity, Jake now stood as an advocate for creativity, a champion for the very values he wanted to instill in Mia. After the meeting, his colleagues approached him, exuding warmth and enthusiasm. They congratulated him on his success, not just for the approval, but for the growth he had instilled in their corporate culture. In their eyes, he found mutual respect and recognition, a confirmation of his efforts to bridge his dual worlds. This was a pivotal moment, not centered on the success of a project but celebrating a profound personal achievement. As he returned home, the warmth of the evening sun bathed him, stirring a familiarity that had deeply eluded him for months. Mia greeted him at the door with her infectious excitement, her fingers paint-stained, a testament to her artistry. "Daddy! Guess what? I painted a new landscape today." "I can't wait to see it," Jake replied, a genuine smile illuminating his expression. In that instant, he embraced the truth he had discovered through vulnerability. Showing up for Mia and being present had to be cherished. Together, they trotted outside into their backyard, and Jake felt liberated. No longer entangled in the approximations of his past experiences, he stood at the intersection of fatherhood and creativity, a place he had fought to create. Mia proudly unveiled her painting, a vibrant collection of colors and emotions reflecting her unfiltered perspective of the world around her. Jake knelt beside her, absorbing the raw beauty of her creation, a canvas reminding him of the importance of imagination and connection. In that moment, he recognized the profound truth. His journey to restore balance within himself had flourished into understanding that creativity was not only a pathway to success but also a vital part of the narrative he shared with his daughter. As he picked up a paintbrush to join her, Jake felt the shackles of expectation fall away, replaced by the essence of fulfillment he had longed for. He was no longer just a CEO or a grieving husband. He had transformed, achieving a sense of wholeness by uniting both his professional aspirations with the love and creativity he nurtured with Mia. He glanced at her, her bright eyes revealed nothing but pure joy, and in that exchange, he recognized the legacy he wished to build, one filled with resilience, openness, and passion. This was his reputation to restore, his brand of leadership grounded in authenticity and depth, a future where they could thrive together. As the sun dipped low, casting hues of orange and pink across the horizon, Jake painted alongside Mia, each brushstroke a testament to the courage he had mustered in every sphere of his life. The past seemed distant now, and he embraced the present moment, inhaling the scent of turpentine and dreams mingled, imprinting it onto the very fabric of who he had now become. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about this triumphant ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion.